What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Rental Family, the new drama film starring Brendan Fraser. This film, out now from Searchlight, is directed by Hikari. She was most well known for directing episodes of Tokyo Vice at HBO and Beef Season 1 on Netflix. This is her most high-profile feature film to date, and having Brendan Fraser as your star, continuing the Brendan Fraser-essence comeback that Fraser has been on of late, following his Best Actor win for Darren Aronofsky's The Whale just a few years ago. And also two exciting members of the supporting cast in this movie as well. We have Takahiro Hira, recently Emmy nominated for his supporting role as Ishido on Shogun. And we also have Mari Yamamoto, who was on Monarch: Legacy of Monsters and Pachinko. Rental Family has a great central premise. Brendan Fraser is an actor in Japan hired by this rental family company to be an actor and play roles for various people in the world that hire him to do various tasks. Showing up at someone's funeral, pretending to be a journalist interviewing them, pretending to be someone's dad, which is the real core story here. It's a very intriguing inspection of an aspect of Japanese society, but thematically is very much interested in themes of isolation and self-worth and identity. It's a very genuine film, very sweet, it's very nice. It leaves you feeling good by its end. Brendan Fraser, very well cast in this role for this type of story. Dramatically, it doesn't go nearly as deep into any of these themes as it could have. It's kind of above the surface for most of it, with the performances up and down the cast really bring the movie home. I think right away you kind of understand who you're spending time with here. Brendan Fraser's character of Philip, an American actor who went to Japan and never left, 7-ish years later, and is now noticeable for obvious reasons outsider in this land that he's now come to call home. Speaks Japanese and everything. He actually confides in a sex worker for companionship and emotional discussion and things of that nature. I think it's a really actually intelligent portrayal of sex work in today's world, and that character kind of pops up here and there throughout the story. Kind of by happenstance, Philip ends up being hired by this company, Rental Family, led by Shinji, Takahiro Hira's character. And Mari Yamamoto's Aiko also works there, and he learns about this world of the Rental Family and the services that they do. Speaks, I think, a lot to very specific aspects of Japanese society and maybe broader Asian society in terms of cultural norms and expectations of pride and apology and things of that. And it certainly could go deeper. It nods at a lot of things. It does not really examine all that too much. Maybe if this was a film without a white lead character and was just focused on the more day-to-day of this type of work, maybe that would be inspected a little bit more. It doesn't really go there, but I've really enjoyed Takahiro Hira. It's certainly a very different performance from what he did on Shogun. And we see just a little bit more of his life as the movie progresses. I think there's a really a satisfying twist that lands regarding his character. And Aiko, her character as a woman, is tasked with perhaps even more of an emotional toll in this line of work, where she's often hired to do these apology services where Japanese men hire her to pretend to be their mistress to apologize to their wives. Speaking to, I think, again, a very specific thing in Japan, but you understand the emotional toll and the isolation that this kind of work would weigh on you and the specifics of that when you happen to be doing it as a woman. But really the key of the film, the key crux of it is when Philip is hired by a Japanese mother to pretend to be the long lost father of a young girl who's applying for a prestigious private education and would be benefited by having a united front with two parents applying for admission. Does the film examine the lunacy of this mom's plan to introduce a fake father to her young daughter who's, I don't know, maybe 12 or so, with the full intention of taking that father away after this acting, thing is done, after she gets into the school? Does it examine the emotional damage that would portray to her kid? No, they don't really go into that at all, that decision making. What you're left with, and you can maybe see it coming a little bit, but Philip grows attached to this young girl, Mia, who, has reservations early on, but then really gets attached to having someone in her life who she thinks is her dad. And they actually grow quite close, and Philip seems to actually care about her well-being and getting to know her and helping her, despite, again, this being a job for him not actually being her dad, of course. The sweetness of the film really comes out of that relationship. And I think where that goes, it's certainly a very plausible direction. The movie doesn't get super outlandish. I was happy to see that he doesn't actually become her dad at the end of the movie because they just like each other so much. I'm happy he didn't actually go that way. So it's a bit more sophisticated than that, but it's very nice. It's very genuine. The other key aspect is Philip is also hired to pretend to be a film journalist interviewing this older, semi-forgotten Japanese actor who is, developing Alzheimer's or something of that nature. He's basically hired to give this guy one last grasp of attention before he starts to lose his memory and things like that. The ethics of that, much more different than everything with the young kid. You can certainly see the belief in that, right? And maybe the justification of something like that. And that's also, I think, a thread that comes across as very sweet and genuine as Philip really begins to actually develop a relationship with Kiko, this old actor. Overall, I think that thread is stretched a bit longer than it needed to be. And there's probably the biggest aspect of like dramatic stakes to the film is regarding that story. And while it does have, I think, a pretty funny comedic conclusion, the film kind of lets everyone off the hook when things actually get real for a second. I was hoping for a little bit more gravity. But again, it kind of leans into the sweetness of it all. So overall, it's a movie I liked quite a bit. I think it's very successful for what it's doing. It's just maybe not quite as dramatically rich as maybe you'd hope it would be. It's trying to be a little bit more kind of above the fold with its storytelling, but I still found it pretty satisfying and a nice role from Fraser once again. I'm not expecting this to be like a top tier awards contender from Searchlight. I don't think this is in the Oscar race, but it's I think another good job from Fraser. Who does he really have to do too much heavy lifting with the dramatic stakes of the film? Not necessarily, but his gestures, his mannerisms, his facial expressions, he's able to, I think, really carry this type of material very well at this stage of his career, and I think he did a good job. Let me know, though, what'd you think of Rental Family? What'd you like most about this movie? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.